Welcome back to Coco Gossip, your number one source for the stories simmering just beneath the surface of the reality TV world. Today, we are opening a case file that promises to redefine everything you thought you knew about the Brown family's financial collapse. We've all seen the tears, the arguments, the endless meetings that went nowhere. We've all heard the same tired refrain, a mantra of misery repeated season after season. We saw Kody Brown, patriarch and family CEO, look his wives in the eyes, his face a mask of strained sincerity, and tell them the well was dry. He told them the family pot was empty. He told them their shared dream of building on Coyote Pass was a financial impossibility, a desert mirage they could no longer afford to chase. He told Janelle, once living in an RV on that barren land, that there was simply no money to pay off the property. He told her there was no money to run the utilities that would give her the basic dignity of running water. What he didn't tell them, what he kept hidden from the women who had invested their lives and their finances into his vision, was that the money wasn't gone. It was sitting in a climate-controlled safe in Robyn's house, converted into an arsenal of high-end firearms. Before we crack open this case file and expose every last lie, do me a favor. If you believe there's more to the story than what we see on TV, hit that like button, subscribe to Coco Gossip, and ring the bell so you don't miss a single update. You are not going to want to miss where this goes. All right, let's dive in. This is Case File 013, The Secret Arsenal. The charge, according to our exclusive insider reports stemming from the contentious divorce proceedings, is nothing short of breathtaking in its audacity: fraudulent misappropriation of marital assets. The accusation is that Kody Brown, over a period of several years, secretly and systematically diverted over $400,000 of funds that were explicitly earmarked for the development of Coyote Pass, into a private, appreciating collection of firearms and accessories. He did this without the knowledge, and certainly without the consent, of his business partners, the very wives he claimed to be leading to a promised land. To understand the depth of this betrayal, we have to rewind the tape. Remember the initial excitement over Coyote Pass? It was supposed to be the culmination of the Brown family dream. 4 homes, maybe 5, on a sprawling piece of land in Flagstaff, Arizona. A place where they could finally put down roots, together but separate. A polygamist utopia under the wide open sky. But from the moment they bought that land, the dream began to curdle. The story we were sold on television was one of logistical nightmares, zoning issues, and, above all, a chronic, crippling lack of funds. The family was house poor, bled dry by multiple mortgages and rentals. Every conversation about building, every discussion about paying off the land to free up capital, hit the same brick wall. Kody's frustrated sigh and the inevitable declaration, "We just don't have the money." We watched as Christine grew increasingly desperate, her dream of returning to Utah clashing with the financial anchor of Coyote Pass. We watched Mary become isolated, her contribution to the family finances seemingly forgotten. But most pointedly, we watched Janelle, the pragmatic, financially savvy wife, the one who had poured her life savings into this venture, reduce her entire existence to an RV on an undeveloped plot of dirt. She did this, she told us, to save money, to get boots on the ground, to force the family to finally make a move on developing the property. She endured scorching summers and freezing winters, all under the belief that the family was in a shared state of financial crisis. She believed in scarcity. She believed Kody when he told her there wasn't a spare dollar to be found. But according to the information that has been exclusively obtained by Coco Gossip, it was all a meticulously crafted lie. Kody's well-known gun hobby, something often played for laughs on the show as a quirky masculine pastime, has been recontextualized by these legal filings. It wasn't a hobby, it was the primary reason for the family's financial ruin in Flagstaff. It was a secret obsession, a voracious financial black hole disguised as a collection. Every dollar he spent on a rare rifle or a custom scope was a dollar that was not spent on paying down the Coyote Pass principal. Every $1,000 he dropped at a gun show was another $1,000 Janelle didn't have for her waterline. His passion wasn't a harmless diversion. It was a secret addiction that he actively and consciously prioritized over his family's most basic need for stable housing. So, how did he do it? How did he manage to siphon off a sum equivalent to a down payment on a luxury home without anyone noticing? The prosecution, as our sources lay it out, calls it the financial shell game. The key to the entire operation was the family's own corporate structure, Dabsark Entertainment, LLC. For those who don't know, Dabsark is an acronym of the adults' names Dayton, Aurora, Brianna, Solomon, Ariella, Robyn, and Kody. An interesting choice, given what we now know. This LLC was the central pot, the entity that owned the land and through which all major financial transactions were supposed to flow. It was also Kody's personal war chest. Here's the alleged scheme. Kody, as the managing partner of the LLC, had the authority to make withdrawals for business-related expenses. He would allegedly withdraw large sums of cash, often tens of thousands of dollars at a time, under vague but plausible-sounding line items. The ledger would show entries for land development consultation fees or preliminary utility deposits or surveyor retainers. To his wives, who were busy managing their own households and were conditioned to trust Kody with the big-picture finances, these entries wouldn't raise a red flag. They sounded legitimate, they sounded like progress, but the consultations never happened, the deposits were never made. The money, now converted into untraceable cash, would go directly into Kody's pocket. With a wallet full of $100 bills, Kody would then embark on a series of clandestine shopping sprees. Our sources describe a pattern of behavior that was as secretive as it was expensive. He would travel to gun shows and private collector meetups across the three-state area, Arizona, Utah, and Nevada, far from the prying eyes of the TLC cameras or his own family. Cash is king in these circles. It leaves no direct paper trail, no credit card statements for a suspicious wife to stumble upon. He would negotiate deals for high-value firearms, paying in crisp bills withdrawn from the Dabsark account just days earlier. He wasn't just buying standard firearms, he was curating a collection, acquiring collector-grade pieces, rare military surplus rifles, and high-end tactical equipment. He was building an arsenal, and he was using the dream of Coyote Pass as his cover. While Janelle was figuring out how to manage her RV's black water tank, Kody was allegedly haggling over the price of an antique Winchester. While Christine was pleading for a timeline to build, Kody was allegedly using the funds meant for her foundation to buy a state-of-the-art sniper scope. For years, this financial sleight of hand went unnoticed. The family's money problems were real, but they were artificially created. The scarcity was a myth Kody perpetuated to hide his own exorbitant spending. He controlled the narrative because he controlled the bank account. He could perform his poverty in front of the cameras, lamenting their financial woes, all while knowing a fortune was accumulating in steel and wood, locked away from the women who had earned it. But secrets like this have a way of coming out, especially when the bonds holding a family together finally snap. The power of proof, in this case, the linchpin of the entire legal strategy against Kody, didn't come from a suspicious wife or a television producer. It came from the cold, methodical process of divorce discovery. As part of Janelle's legal separation and the subsequent division of assets, her legal team did what Kody likely never anticipated. They demanded a full and complete accounting of every single marital asset. Not just land and houses, but all personal property of significant value. This is where the story takes a dramatic turn. Kody, under legal pressure, was forced to disclose the existence of his collection, but he likely downplayed its value, referring to it as a simple hobby. Janelle's lawyers, however, were not so easily dismissed. They filed a motion, which the court granted, for an independent appraisal of the collection, and this is how a certified firearms appraiser, a man we'll call Dr. Marcus Thorne, found himself standing in front of a very large, very expensive, climate-controlled safe in Robyn and Kody's multi-million-dollar home. The scene, as described by our sources, was one of pure astonishment. When the heavy steel doors swung open, it wasn't a handful of hunting rifles Dr. Thorne found. It was a meticulously organized, museum-quality collection, row after row of firearms, from historical artifacts to the latest in military-grade weaponry. The appraiser spent 2 full days cataloging, inspecting, and documenting every single piece. His testimony, delivered under oath, was the bombshell that blew the case wide open. The shocking inventory he presented to the court listed over 200 individual firearms. This wasn't just a casual hobby. It was a serious, large-scale investment operation. The list included several rare, collector-grade pieces that sent murmurs through the courtroom. There were pre-1964 Winchester Model 70 rifles known as the rifleman's rifle set, which can fetch thousands of dollars apiece. There were multiple Colt Pythons, the Rolls-Royce of revolvers, whose value has skyrocketed in recent years. He cataloged a series of Heckler & Koch tactical rifles, the same kind used by elite military units around the world. There were antique Sharps rifles from the Old West, sitting alongside modern marvels of engineering, like custom-built long-range precision rifles with scopes that cost more than a used car. And tucked in the back, the crown jewel of the collection, a Barrett M82A1, a 50 caliber semi-automatic sniper rifle, a weapon of incredible power and expense. But Dr. Thorne didn't just provide a list. He provided the cold, hard numbers. He presented the court with an official, notarized appraisal, valuing the entire collection at a conservative estimate of $415,000. $415,000. Let that number sink in. That is more than enough to have paid off the Coyote Pass land in full, with money left over to begin development. It was the solution to every single financial problem the family had publicly agonized over for years. The money wasn't a myth, it was right there. The final nail in the coffin, the evidence that transformed this from a case of reckless spending to one of calculated deceit, was a small stack of papers Dr. Thorne discovered tucked away inside the original boxes for some of the more recent high-value purchases. Receipts. Kody, in a moment of hubris or simple carelessness, had kept the receipts, and these slips of paper told a story far more damning than any financial ledger could. Dr. Thorne testified that these receipts from private dealers and specialty shops were almost all for cash sales, and crucially, he was able to provide the dates of purchase for several key items, showing they were bought during the exact months Kody was on camera, crying poverty and denying his family their future. He had, in effect, kept a diary of his own betrayal. The courtroom atmosphere, our sources report, was electric. You could feel the weight of years of lies collapsing in on one man. The vague, unprovable sense of financial mismanagement that had haunted the wives for years was suddenly made terrifyingly concrete. It had a name, a location, and a price tag of $415,000. It was Kody's secret arsenal purchased with their stolen future. The stage was now set for the most dramatic confrontation of all, where Janelle's lawyer would take this mountain of evidence and use it to hold Kody Brown accountable, forcing him to answer for every dollar, every lie, and every choice he made that put his own obsession ahead of the well-being of the family he swore to protect. The shell game was over. A reckoning was about to begin. The confrontation was not just about money. It was about the fundamental betrayal of trust that had underpinned the family's entire existence in Flagstaff. It was about forcing Kody to face the woman he had lied to most directly, the woman who had sacrificed the most, and answer for his choices under the sworn penalty of perjury. The quiet dignity of the courtroom was a stark contrast to the chaotic, emotionally charged family meetings we've seen on television. Here, there were rules, there was evidence, and there was a lawyer, armed with meticulously organized proof, ready to dismantle Kody Brown's carefully constructed reality, piece by painful piece. Next, the second act of this courtroom drama began with Janelle's lawyer, a sharp, no-nonsense woman, calling Kody Brown to the witness stand. The tension was palpable. Kody, accustomed to being the one in control, the director of his family's circus, now found himself in a position where he was no longer in charge. He couldn't deflect, he couldn't storm off, he couldn't turn the blame onto one of his wives. He had to answer the questions. The lawyer let the silence hang in the air for a moment before she approached the stand, holding a plastic-sheathed document. It was one of the receipts Dr. Thorne had discovered. She began calmly, her voice even. "Mr. Brown, I'd like to direct your attention to this document marked as Exhibit A. This is a receipt of sale from a private firearms dealer in St. George, Utah. Can you confirm for the court that this is your signature at the bottom?" Kody squinted at the paper, his bravado already beginning to crack. "It looks like my signature. I do a lot of business." "Indeed you do," the lawyer replied, her voice laced with ice. "Mr. Brown, this receipt shows you purchased a Barrett M82 rifle for the sum of $9,500 paid in cash on June 10th, 2021. Is that correct?" The specific detail, the exact date and amount, seemed to momentarily stun him. He shifted in his seat, his eyes darting towards Robyn, then back to the lawyer. His defensiveness kicked in. The familiar Kody bluster we've all seen 100 times. It's an investment. It's a highly sought-after piece of equipment. It holds its value better than dirt. Better than that useless land we've been pouring money into. The lawyer didn't flinch. She let his outburst hang in the air, allowing the judge and everyone in the room to absorb the callousness of his statement. Then she moved in for the kill. An investment, you say? That's an interesting word for it. Mr. Brown, let me refresh your memory about that particular week in June of 2021. That same week, my client, Janelle Brown, the woman you were spiritually married to for nearly 30 years, the mother of 6 of your children, was living in an RV on that useless land with no running water. She had to haul water in and out every single day. She came to you and she begged you for $8,000 to connect her trailer to the community cistern, a temporary solution to give her some basic human dignity. And do you remember what you told her, Mr. Brown? Kody was silent, his jaw tight. The lawyer pressed on, her voice rising with a righteous indignation. You told her the money didn't exist. You told her the Dabzark account was stretched to its absolute limit. You told her to be patient and tighten her belt like everyone else. But the money did exist, didn't it, Mr. Brown? It existed in a neat stack of $100 bills in your pocket. In fact, you were holding more than enough to solve her problem right there in your hands. But instead of giving your wife running water, you chose to buy this. She held up a glossy poster-sized photo of the Barrett M82 rifle, a monstrous military-grade weapon, and placed it on an easel facing the judge. You chose to buy a sniper rifle, is that correct? Kody sputtered. It's not that simple. The family has expenses, logistics. You don't understand the big picture. Oh, I think my client understands the picture perfectly now, the lawyer retorted, walking back to her table and picking up another receipt. Let's talk about October 2021, Isabel's surgery. A difficult time for the family, I imagine. Christine was fundraising, trying to meet the staggering insurance deductible for your daughter's life-changing scoliosis surgery. And yet, this receipt here shows that on October 15th, you were at a collector's show in Las Vegas where you purchased a matching pair of engraved Colt single-action Army revolvers for $7,000. Was your daughter's health not a good enough investment for you, Mr. Brown? I provided for my family, Kody yelled, his face turning red. I've always provided. You provided for yourself, the lawyer corrected him coldly. You provided for your obsession. Let's talk about Christmas 2020. The family was struggling, isolated by the pandemic, and you imposed draconian rules that kept them apart. You spoke at length on your show about the financial strain of it all. Yet, this receipt, dated December 5th, 2020, shows the cash purchase of a Schmidt & Bender 5 to 25.56 PM2 scope, one of the most expensive rifle scopes in the world, for just over $4,000. Is that what a man on the brink of financial ruin does, Mr. Brown? Buys a $4,000 scope for a rifle he keeps locked in a safe? One by one, she laid out the receipts, each one a testament to his deceit. A $5,000 purchase of bulk, match-grade ammunition, and in the same month Mary was told there was no money to fix the leaky roof at her rental. A $10,000 purchase for a rare, antique Winchester 1886 rifle, just days after the family had a tearful meeting about being unable to even start construction on a single home. Each receipt was a dagger, twisting the knife of betrayal. This wasn't just about the money, it was about the cold, calculated choice Kody made. Over and over again, he looked Janelle in the eye. He saw her suffering in a cramped trailer on a barren plot of land. He listened to her pleas for the most basic of necessities, and he lied directly to her face. He feigned empathy. He performed the role of the stressed patriarch, all the while knowing that the solution to her problems, the money that could give her comfort and dignity, was locked away in his and Robyn's house, converted into luxury items he valued more than her well-being. The judge, a stern, older woman who had seen her share of messy divorces, listened to the entire exchange with a stony expression. When Janelle's lawyer rested, the judge turned her gaze to Kody. Her voice was quiet, but it carried the weight of absolute authority. Mr. Brown, she began. Throughout these proceedings, you and your counsel have repeatedly characterized this collection of firearms as a personal hobby and an investment portfolio, separate from the marital assets of your other partnerships. I have reviewed the extensive evidence presented, including the certified appraisal from Dr. Thorne and the damning timeline of purchases laid out by Ms. Brown's counsel. She paused, looking over her glasses at him. A hobby is something one pursues with disposable income. An investment is something that is chosen and managed with the transparent goal of benefiting a shared financial future. What you have engaged in, Mr. Brown, is neither. You systematically drained a corporate account, an account funded by the collective labor and sacrifice of all 4 of your wives at the time, and you did so under false pretenses. You created fraudulent line items to hide your withdrawals. You dealt exclusively in cash to avoid a paper trail. You did this while simultaneously claiming poverty to the very partners whose money you were spending. The judge's voice grew harder. The court does not see a hobbyist. The court sees a man who, when faced with a choice between providing his wife with running water or buying a new luxury item for himself, chose the luxury item. The court sees a man who watched his daughter's mother fundraise for a critical surgery while he spent thousands on collector's pieces. Therefore, this court finds that the gun collection is not a personal hobby or a separate investment. It is a marital asset purchased with marital funds under deeply fraudulent pretenses. Mr. Brown did not invest for the family. He stole from the family to fund his obsession. The word stole hung in the silent courtroom. Kody looked ashen, defeated. The judge then delivered her ruling, a judgment of such perfect poetic justice that it was breathtaking. It is the order of this court that the entire collection of firearms and accessories, valued at $415,000, is to be immediately seized from your possession. The collection will be transferred to a licensed, bonded auction house, where it will be liquidated in its entirety at public auction. The full proceeds from this sale, down to the last dollar, are to be awarded directly to the plaintiff, Janelle Brown. Gasps could be heard in the room. The judge wasn't finished. This award will serve as direct compensation for her initial and ongoing financial investment in the Coyote Pass property, a property whose development was actively sabotaged by your actions. It will also serve as compensation for the emotional distress and damages incurred by your calculated and malicious deception. You built this collection on a foundation of lies, Mr. Brown. It is only fitting that the woman you lied to the most should be the one to benefit from its dismantling. You told her she had invested in dirt. As it turns out, she had invested in your arsenal. Now she is cashing out. The victory was absolute. Janelle got her money back. Not through a messy, protracted sale of the land she had been tricked and trapped on, but from the secret hoard of assets he had bought with her stolen future. He had converted their dream of a home into instruments of power. And now, that power was being converted back into the capital she was owed. It was a perfect reversal, a moment of profound vindication that transcended mere finance. It was justice. And so, the verdict in case file No. 33 is in. On the charge of fraudulent misappropriation of marital assets, this was a clear and decisive win for Janelle. But on a deeper, more fundamental level, the verdict is this. Kody Brown is guilty. Guilty of prioritizing a secret obsession over his family's fundamental need for shelter. Guilty of emotional manipulation and financial abuse on a grand scale. Guilty of looking the women who built his kingdom in the eye and lying day after day, year after year. The secret arsenal, his private hoard of power and prestige, became the very instrument of his downfall. And for Janelle, who endured so much with such quiet strength, she finally got what she deserved. Not just the money, but the truth, brought into the light for all to see. The gavel fell, but the sound didn't so much end the proceedings as it shattered a universe. For years, the Brown family's reality was built on Kody's narrative of scarcity and struggle. In a single moment, that reality was exposed as a fragile, self-serving fiction. Our sources inside the courtroom describe the immediate aftermath not as a scene of loud celebration or rage, but of stunning, profound silence. Janelle Brown, we're told, didn't weep or cheer. She simply closed her eyes and took a deep, steadying breath. The first she'd probably taken in years that wasn't filled with anxiety or uncertainty. It was the quiet exhale of a woman who had just been handed back the weight of her own life. Kody, on the other hand, was reportedly frozen in his chair, his face a pallid mask of disbelief. The bluster, the righteous anger, the performative victimhood, it had all evaporated, leaving behind a hollowed-out man who had just been publicly stripped of his secrets, his power, and a significant portion of his net worth. Robyn, sitting in the gallery, was allegedly the first to break, letting out a small, strangled sob before quickly stifling it, her eyes wide with what could only be described as pure panic. The Queen had just watched the castle's treasury be seized by a foreign power. The true drama, however, unfolded not in the sanitized environment of the courthouse, but 2 days later, in the exclusive gated community where Robyn's million-dollar fortress stands. According to highly credible reports from neighbors and sources close to the situation, the seizure of the secret arsenal was a meticulously planned and executed operation. It began not with a bang, but with the quiet arrival of 2 unmarked county vans and a sedan carrying court-appointed officers. They weren't there to negotiate. They were there to execute a legal order. They presented Kody, who answered the door looking disheveled and worn, with a writ of execution. This was the tangible consequence of the judge's ruling. His precious collection, his so-called investment, was no longer his. It was now property of the court, pending liquidation. What followed was described as a scene of controlled chaos and raw humiliation. The officers were professional, methodical. They were accompanied by a team from a licensed federal firearms dealer tasked with safely inventorying and transporting the weapons. Every single one of the 200-plus firearms had to be logged, its serial number recorded, and carefully packed into secure cases. Kody was legally required to be present for the entire process. He was forced to stand by and watch as his life's secret passion was dismantled piece by piece. Reports claim he was mostly silent, a simmering volcano of impotent rage. He couldn't object, he couldn't argue, his power was gone. He was just a man in his own living room, being supervised as his assets were repossessed. Robyn's reaction, however, was said to be far more volatile. Our sources paint a picture of a woman completely unhinged by the intrusion and the loss. She allegedly tried to argue with the officers, claiming the collection was a family inheritance and that they had no right. When presented with the court order bearing the judge's signature, she reportedly broke down, making frantic phone calls to her lawyer, her voice escalating into near hysterics. She was heard screaming that this was theft and that Janelle was destroying their family, a moment of supreme irony that was not lost on the officers present. For Robyn, this wasn't just about the loss of money, it was about the violation of her sanctuary. The arsenal, hidden away in her and Kody's master suite, was a symbol of their status as the alpha couple, the true center of the family. It was their secret, a shared hoard of wealth that set them apart from the other, struggling wives. Now that secret was being packed into boxes and hauled out into the daylight for all the world to see, a public shaming of the highest order. The climate-controlled safe, once a vault of secret power, now stood empty and gaping, a monument to their hubris. This brings us to one of the most explosive and exclusive theories circulating in the wake of this verdict, a theory that reframes Robyn's entire role in this saga. The official narrative, the one Kody tried to sell, was that this was his hobby, his domain. But the collection was in Robyn's house. It was protected by her walls, secured in her space. The question the legal teams began to ask was, how much did she really know? The answer, according to sources deep inside the investigation, is everything. More than that, the theory posits that Robyn wasn't just a passive bystander, she was an active co-conspirator and enabler. Think about it. Kody is not a man known for his subtlety or his financial discipline. To pull off a deception of this magnitude for so many years, siphoning off nearly $500,000 would require a partner. Someone to help manage the secret, to guard the hoard, to reinforce the narrative of poverty to the other wives while enjoying the fruits of the deception. The collection wasn't just Kody's, it was theirs. It was Kody and Robyn's joint nest egg, their golden parachute built from the shared marital funds of women they were actively deceiving. It was Robyn who benefited from the financial scarcity imposed on the other wives. While Janelle was living in an RV, Robyn was living in a mansion surrounded by hundreds of thousands of dollars in appreciating assets. Every dollar spent on a rifle for the safe in her house was a dollar that couldn't be spent on a house for Christine in Flagstaff, thus ensuring Christine would remain miserable and eventually leave. consolidating Robyn's power. Every withdrawal for a utility deposit that went to a gun show instead of Coyote Pass ensured Janelle remained stuck in limbo, unable to build, solidifying Robyn's position as the only wife living in the manner to which Kody felt they should all become accustomed. The arsenal wasn't just a collection of guns, it was a strategic tool in the long-term emotional and financial warfare within the Brown family. It was the ultimate symbol of the two distinct classes that had emerged: Kody and Robyn in the ruling class, and the other wives in the working class, funding an empire from which they were excluded. This theory recontextualizes every tearful conversation Robyn had about the family's finances. Was she crying because the family was broke? Or because she was terrified the secret that kept her and Kody afloat would be discovered? The seizure of the arsenal wasn't just a financial blow, it was the complete implosion of her power structure. And the financial blow is one from which they may never recover. $415,000 is a life-altering sum of money for Kody and Robyn, who were already leveraged to the hilt with the mortgage on their massive home. The loss of this asset is nothing short of catastrophic. Financial analysts who have looked into the Browns' public records suggest that their lifestyle has long been sustained by a combination of TLC money and a complex web of debt. The house itself, purchased for nearly $900,000, carries a massive monthly payment. Add to that their expensive vehicles, designer clothing, and the cost of supporting their household, and the numbers just don't add up, especially now that the TLC income has been drastically reduced with the departure of the other wives. The secret arsenal, this so-called investment, was likely their emergency fund, their off-the-books retirement plan. It was the hard asset they could always fall back on. Without it, they are dangerously exposed. Rumors are now swirling that they are facing a severe mortgage crisis. We are hearing reports that they have missed payments and are in pre-foreclosure. The beautiful castle where the queen guarded her hoard could very well be repossessed by the bank. The irony is almost too much to bear. The very greed that kept Janelle and Christine from having homes of their own in Flagstaff might be the exact reason Kody and Robyn lose theirs. They didn't just steal from the family, they stole from their own future, betting it all on a secret they thought would never see the light of day. This verdict has sent shockwaves through the entire extended family, and the reactions, as reported to us, are as varied as the individuals themselves. For Christine, who fought for years to be heard and was consistently gaslit about the family's finances, the news was said to be a moment of profound, if bittersweet, vindication. A source close to her told us, "It's like every crazy-making conversation, every time she was told she was being selfish for wanting a house, was just proven to be a lie." She's heartbroken for Janelle and what she went through, but she's also relieved that the truth is finally out there. For Christine, this wasn't about the money, it was about the confirmation that her gut feeling, the deep-seated knowledge that something was fundamentally wrong and dishonest at the core of the family's finances, was correct all along. Mary, ever the enigma, has reportedly been much quieter. Her financial entanglement with the family has always been complex, particularly with her investment in the bed and breakfast. However, sources suggest that this revelation was the final, definitive proof that she was never seen as an equal partner. She had contributed significantly to the family pot for decades, only to be emotionally and financially sidelined. Learning that hundreds of thousands of dollars were being secretly diverted while she was begging for validation and a meaningful role in the family must have been a devastating final blow to any lingering hope of reconciliation. But perhaps the most powerful reactions have come from the children, especially Janelle's sons, Gabe and Garrison. We all watched their heartbreaking estrangement from Kody, fueled by his rigid pandemic rules and what they perceived as his blatant favoritism towards Robyn's household. They openly challenged their father, accusing him of hypocrisy and abandoning the rest of the family. This court ruling is their ultimate vindication. They weren't just angry kids, they were witnesses to the truth. They saw the financial disparity, the emotional neglect. They watched their mother live in an RV while Kody spent his time at Robyn's mansion. This verdict proves that their anger was justified. It gives legitimacy to every one of their complaints. We are told they have rallied around their mother with immense pride, seeing her not just as a victim, but as a warrior who fought for what was hers and won. This has likely severed the final frayed threads of their relationship with Kody, solidifying their loyalty to the mother he so deeply betrayed. And what of Coyote Pass, the land that started it all? That cursed patch of dirt that was supposed to be a polygamous paradise, and instead became a battleground of broken dreams. With Janelle now in possession of the full value of her investment in cash, the entire dynamic of the property has shifted. She is no longer a supplicant hoping Kody will one day decide to build. She is now a major creditor. Our legal sources speculate that she is now in an incredible position of power. She can force a sale of the entire property through a legal action called a partition sale, allowing her to cash out her share of the land itself and walk away completely free. Or she could offer to buy out Kody and Robyn's remaining shares for pennies on the dollar, potentially taking control of the entire property herself. The land Kody once lorded over her is now a liability for him, another asset he may be forced to liquidate to pay his mounting debts. Janelle holds all the cards. She can finally close the book on Flagstaff on her own terms, free from the man who used that land to control and manipulate her for years. The final act of this incredible story of justice was the auction itself. It was an event shrouded in a certain level of secrecy to protect the privacy of the buyers, but our sources were able to piece together a picture of what transpired. The liquidation was handled by a high-end auction house that specializes in firearms and military collectibles. The collection, now officially known as Lot 1138, the Brown Collection, generated significant buzz in the collector community due to the rarity of some of the pieces. The auction was held online over a period of 3 days, and the bidding was reportedly fierce. Collectors from all over the country and even internationally competed for the spoils of Kody Brown's secret obsession. The star of the show, the Barrett M82 rifle that Kody bought instead of providing Janelle with running water, was one of the first items up for bid. It reportedly sold for over $12,000, well above its purchase price. The antique Winchesters, the engraved Colt revolvers, the high-end German scopes, one by one they were sold to the highest bidder, each click of the virtual gavel another shovelful of dirt on the grave of Kody's deception. The auction house had set the conservative appraisal at $415,000. But in the heated market of private collectors, the final tally was nothing short of staggering. When the last lot was sold, the grand total, after auction fees, came to just over $492,000. The market had decided that Kody's obsession was worth even more than the experts had predicted, a final ironic twist that padded Janelle's victory by more than $75,000, nearly $500,000, transferred directly into Janelle Brown's bank account. It is a sum that represents not just money, but freedom, liberation, the power to write her own future, completely unburdened by the man who tried to steal it from her. We are hearing from sources close to Janelle that she is already putting that freedom to good use. She has reportedly purchased a beautiful home of her own, not a massive, ostentatious mansion, but a comfortable, welcoming house with a big garden close to her children and grandchildren, a true home paid for in cash. She has invested in her business, the wellness company she is so passionate about, securing her own financial independence for the rest of her life. And most importantly, she is helping her children, providing them with the support and stability their father so often denied them. In the end, this was never just about a secret gun collection. It was about the fundamental lie at the heart of the Brown family for the last decade. The lie that they were all in it together, sharing in the struggle. They weren't. Kody and Robyn were building a private kingdom, and they were using the other wives' resources as their personal construction fund. Janelle's victory in court wasn't revenge. It was a rebalancing of the scales. It was a reclamation of her labor, her sacrifice, and her future. Kody Brown built an arsenal to make himself feel powerful, but in the end, all it did was arm the woman he wronged with the justice she needed to destroy his empire and build her own. The secret arsenal is gone, sold off to strangers, its dark power converted into light. And Janelle Brown, who once lived in a trailer on a barren plot of land, is finally truly home.